Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Headspace Podcast. It's your boy HSR.
It's your boy Chris Chrome.
It's your boy Prophetry.
Alright, so before we get into talking about stuff, and keep in mind if you don't care, in the description you can jump ahead. You'll see the whole episode itinerary. We're going to talk about the grind of 1,000 subscribers contest, basically where we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible. So all you would need to do to enter this thing is to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment related to the review or to the album in general. And if you are the lucky person, you will win $100 of Amazon money. Plus, you can request a review, $50 for second place, and then third place will be $25. It'll be randomly drawn, just names and whatnot. And for every video that you comment and like, you are extra raffle entries entered into this potential 1,000 subscriber situation.
Whoa, Holden, are you saying that I could win $100 just by going and commenting and subscribing right now and liking the video? That's so easy. It would take like a minute.
Yeah, but watch a little bit first so you sound like you know what's up. But yeah, it is that easy, and $100 of Amazon money, and if you're in a country that is not the US of A, it will be some equivalent currency sent your way of $100. So I'm okay with doing .co.uk and pounds, but it might be like 80. It might not be 100 pounds is what we're trying to say. 100 USD is the standard. It's a beautiful round number that we can all love.
The point is you'd be crazy not to do it.
And if you really dig our shit, you can just request some reviews. You can request a movie. I don't know, mobile game, fuck it, whatever. And then you can pick who you want to see talking, and we all have to sit here and talk about what you want. So if you're tired of me, you can kick me off, just bring in Prophetry, kick Chris off, bring in Sid, have them just have a chit-chat. I don't know, whatever the fuck you want. Anyway, once we hit 1,000
forcing us to mingle now?
Yeah, that's what we're doing. It's like dating, but platonically.
Oh, great.
And basically, once we hit the 1,000 marker, a couple days later, we'll make that video, and we'll make it all happen. And so on that note, why don't we get into the real reason y'all are here? Chris, please introduce the episode.
Well, for this week's Headspace episode, we decided to go with Crooked Eye / King Crooked.
Yo, but I think it's actually Crooked Eye, and I'm confused by the rebranding because
he rebranded it to King Crooked.
He rebranded it to King Crooked sometime back, if I'm not mistaken.
But the whole joke of King Crooked, right, is that he puts an X where the eye should be, so it's like it's a cross. It's like crossed eyes, right? Like ha, Crooked Eye. Like it's basically the same guy.
No, it's absolutely the same guy.
It's like the same brand even. It's just that he changed the words he used to express it.
For all terms and purposes, I'm going to put King Crooked spelt with the X because that's what the Googles and shit are going to have.
But they don't. Like, you go to Wikipedia, and Wikipedia still says Crooked Eye instead of King Crooked.
All the album listings say King Crooked. So, even if, I don't know, actually, I don't think
the
it's
album
listed
is
on
called Good vs. Evil II, The Red Empire.
Which shows it's the sequel. So, okay, I don't know much about King Crooked / Crooked Eye. I do know who he is. I've listened to a bit of Slaughterhouse. He's kind of one of those names you definitely come across. I don't know that I've listened to anything by him with intention before today or recently. Yeah. But to give myself some credit, because I knew what was going to happen if I didn't do this, before I actually listened to this album, I started to listen to this album, and as well, some spoilers, there were some indications that it was linked to a previous project. So I put on Good vs. Evil 1, and I listened to that through. I didn't have a lot of time to, absorb the full story, but it's very, you get the gist of it.
By the way.
It's really well made. You get the gist of what happens and what he's going for, etc., etc. That was 2015, I believe it came out.
16.
Are you sure? Sure, whatever. I don't care. You guys can tell us if we're wrong.
Spotify.
And then, so I listened to that first, and then I listened to this, and I'm quite into this, is all I can say now. We'll go through the album and whatnot, but to contextualize, as is the case on many of these reviews, this is my first real adventure with King Crooked, Crooked Eye, etc., so you know what's up. I'm going to tell you what I think shortly.
Same here. I've never really dived into any of his music, any of his older albums. I figured I'd listen to part one as well. I mean, I didn't think I'd understand this one, or at least the context of what was going on. So first off, the first album, Good vs. Evil, was actually a pretty good album. I enjoyed it. I think that it had the right tone, the right type of message he was trying to send, and it did its job, at least for me. So I was also hoping that this one's going to do the same. We'll get to that.
So this is not my first time listening to Crooked Eye. I have listened to his other Good versus Evil album a long time ago, and only once or twice. My impression back then was very similar to my impression now, which is that he is this very talented MC. He's doing something that I like, which is conceptually trying to go down a certain route. He's even using this kind of comic booky feel to it, which is just like he did in the first one. All of these are ingredients that I should like, but like with the first album, there's something that feels missing to pull me in.
Okay.
And so, Crooked Eye, for those who don't know, is one of the members of Slaughterhouse, which is one of the like, what do they call it? Super groups, a hip hop super group, along with Joe Budden, Royce da 5'9", and
Joey Ortiz.
Right.
And they basically are a bunch of underground powerhouses who are all not quite so active in music anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe Budden and Royce, I think, are both done with projects, unless I'm mistaken. But, and then you just have, clearly King Crooked still at it. Crooked Eye, however you want to call him. But yeah, no. So.
And they're all super talented. I would just say, for me, there's something, when I listen to, and I showed Holden today or yesterday, this group of, I think it's the Brothers of Crooked Eye, who are Horseshoe Gang. Like, I really love some of their stuff, and for some reason, Crooked Eye just doesn't, I don't quite see him in that same light.
That's all right. So let's look at this cover here, where it's kind of looks like the Last Supper a little bit, with the evil bad guy with the red eyes in the middle, and then a bunch of sinister folk around, and then you just kind of have Crooked Eye like ready to go at it, representing.
Well, did you guys notice Jesus is there too?
No.
Jesus is actually on the left side. He, like Hilda was saying, you've got this this dark hooded figure with red eyes, chilling in the middle, kind of like Grim Reaper-ish. And on the left side, well, when you look at the picture, on the left side of the dark figure, there's Jesus in the background. And I was kind of curious because I was like, Jesus isn't a bad, sinister person as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I know, but Jesus is used by bad, sinister people for bad, sinister things by, like, the evil empire.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like Westboro Baptist. But just in general, I could see how that makes total sense. Anyway, so it's kind of like him versus the empire, and then with the title, it's like...
And also, the puppet master in the back was pretty cool, just because in the last, if any of you guys did listen to the last album, you would know that he killed the puppet master.
Yeah.
So it seems to be that there is another one who is showing up now, and is taking over and controlling whoever this dark figure is at the moment.
And so you get the feeling it's going to be like an epic battle of sorts, and he's ready for this face-off, and I don't know. I was okay with it. I'm ready to start if you are, unless you have more comments.
I just wanted to say I haven't made any comment yet on the
whoops.
I quite like the album cover. It's interesting. It catches your attention. Just that whole idea of having all of these different figures with strong connotations. This idea that they're all this part of this almost dark brotherhood controlling the world, like the Illuminati. It's like a little bit cliched, but it's entertaining. I like it, so
Cool.
I think it serves the purpose well.
All right, let's jump into this shit. Wake Up Show intro is what we start with.
Crooked sent us this brand new Good versus Evil Part 2, the Red Empire.
What a spectacular introduction. I feel it's partly spectacular. So you have Sway and Tech debuting the album to like start it off, which I was like, okay, validation points, I guess. I see no other purpose for like Sway and Tech's intro except for them to be like, yeah, we think King Crooked is like a sick rapper. Like that was all I got from that. But it also kind of sets the context at the same time that what you're about to listen to is like a radio broadcast story type thing. So it kind of like has a cinematic feel, but it more feels like a really sellout move to start off the album. just my first impressions, because in light of the context of everything we're about to hear, what a bad way to start in all things considered. But then we finally get to where, like, it actually starts, and you get, like, radio announcer robot lady voice coming in and, like, previously on Good versus Evil or whatever she says. And then it's kind of like all the really important guest features from the last album, like Eminem's part gets played. Because on the last album, they weren't, like, featured on verses. It was, like, they had these, like, spoken word interlude things that they would, like, interject.
That was the first track.
But no, Eminem had one. Like, RZA wasn't really a verse so much as again the thing. Tech Nine's wasn't really a verse on the last album, so like they were kind of like more like spoken things. They weren't even featured. It said "with" in the credits, which I thought was interesting. So he kind of like took those things, like Eminem and RZA's, like, hey, these guys were like.
Well, the way that I saw it was that it's kind of like when you watch an episode playback, like, oh, last week on this, and they cut, like, they show you the first part, the middle of the album, like the middle of the show,
but
and
like
the end.
he had like 98% of that album could have been something else. And it was like, yep, he took the Eminem part and he took the RZA part, because obviously, but they were like good context setters. Like Eminem's part describes the world. You're like, freedom isn't free, blah, blah, blah. And then that song, they kind of explore that subject on the other album. And then RZA has his part where Bobby Digital interacts and whatnot. And then he's like, I killed the puppet master. And then the chick comes in with like her next little part where the puppet master's dead, but there's a new evil out there. And then she keeps talking as it flows into the next song, which I love. I think it's really good. It kind of has more of a mixtapey, all of it's a consistent effort type feel. So it's not meant to be like one track by track by track by track. I mean, that's how we're breaking it down for the show, but you really are supposed to kind of hit play and let this go like a TV show or like a movie or something, right? And that's the kind of effect that, because it really sunk me in. I like the way the production comes in and it's eerie and stuff. For me, this was pretty, like, one of the better introductory kind of skits I have come across reviewing albums thus far. So I'm giving this a 4.5. And if it wasn't for the sellout move, I would have been a 5. Because honestly, even though it's kind of cheeky, it's still pretty fucking cool.
Nice. Right?
Yeah, I also like the introduction. I felt like it was good way to like really dive right into that comic booky feel that I'm inclined to believe inspired both this album and the last one. You know, the kind of talking, it feels very much like a last week on this TV show, right? It feels like that cartoon kind of continuation, but with a little bit of a darker tone. And I especially like the way that the intro ended with that whole like that summary, and there's, I'm here to kill the puppet master, gunshot, the puppet master was destroyed.
Yeah.
But there was no time to celebrate because a new evil has awakened. Feels like an episode of Yu-Gi-Oh, you know, like it's funny, it's entertaining. I really like the feel of it. As far as like the song itself, or like the background, it suits that feel. The production suits that feel of a comic book. And for me, it works here. Probably one of the places it works in particular is this introduction. So I gave this a 4, and I liked it.
Nice. I like the creativity behind it. I like what was done. I just didn't like it.
Okay.
And I know that sounds weird. I gave it a 3.5 on 5. I get it objectively. I understand what he tried to do and what it was going on. I just didn't like the way it was done. I think I prefer more if it was kind of like a scripter kind of entering into the new thing type intro. I don't know.
I don't know. This was cooler for me.
I don't know. I just didn't really. I liked it. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm saying it wasn't produced bad. It was cool. It was a nice. Yeah, I saw the imagery in the recap. I got that whole feel. Okay, 3.5 on 5.
All right, sure. So the MAGA Continues is next.
On the ass, what else they gonna do to us? Already coming to community, killing anybody who lower class. They ain't nothing new.
MAGA, Make America Great Again. Just throwing it out there. So this is kind of painting Trump as the main villain in this story, like straight up. Like, so it's very clear that it's this comic booky feel of the red villain in the start, but then just to make sure, you know what we're talking about, right? Like, just to make sure he puts some actual Trump clips of some stuff I can remember, like how he encouraged violence with the protesters, etc. Then it just flows into this fucking verse, like this long ass verse, which was very much like kind of describing the community, kind of a response to the police violence, his anger. It kind of migrates a bit into industry censorship and explores a lot of different topics. Like, he's got some fucking wicked lyrics here, like,
Well, I like
what else they gonna do to us? Already coming to the community, killing anybody who lower class. That ain't nothing new to us. If y'all thought Eric Garner was the first, then you don't know the half. And it kind of goes on from there, you know? And it's just, like, it's stuff like, I guess you're supposed to know. Like, you know that Eric Garner is not the first, but maybe he's one of the early names that triggered this wave of names that people care about and stuff. And anyway, I kind of like how he's coming in very aggressively, but with this almost tone of, like, it's not the beginning. It's like this is frustration. Like, he can't believe he has to make this album, is the sense I'm getting in this very first song. Like, as much as it might not feel like it's the most pleasant experience, it's because it's not. He feels like this frustration. Like, what I love about it is he is taking his platform to actually speak on what he feels to be the most important shit out there. Like,
Yeah, agreed.
like, sucker don't like what I said, off with his head. Watch our population of real decrease when I'm dead. I can't talk about unity.
Yeah,
I
that's
can
my
only
favorite
talk
part.
about from where I'm from, point out 100 guns at you and me. And it's basically like Jesus walks his message, right? Like, if you really think about it, that little part, it's, you know, you say you can rap about, like, gun, sex, videotapes, but if you rap about God, your record won't get played. Same kind of idea, right? Like, this music is clearly being used in a sense where, unless you're pushing this negative message, etc., and whatever, it's you're not allowed to do it. So when you have a guy like him who's trying to push this message of unity and etc., like, and he's almost like making a choice to defy everything with his mantra and with this song. I really like this. I feel almost inspired hearing it. Like, I feel like there's a heavy, like, Deltron 3030 influence here.
Yep.
Like, already just but like his language, like, he put his little fantasy world together, and it's clearly kind of got this sci-fi feel.
Yeah.
But unlike Deltron, which was just so far out there, he's not trying to make it out there. He's trying to just describe current day situations and throwing occasional almost sci-fi parallels out there.
Deltron made an actual fictional story, I feel, and Crooked Eye, or King Crooked, he's using this comic book cartoony space imagery to just relay his message. It's not like he's trying to build a fictional story. He's just doing it on purpose towards his message.
Like, I feel like he's trying to take a fictional approach to fact. It is a good way to put it, which I like. I like it because that's kind of what sci-fi fundamentally is. Although Deltron created a fantasy world, I feel this is more like a science fiction, realistic, modern era approach to it, which is cool because it's a fucking rap album, right? Mm-hmm. So the fact that I can geek out a little bit is always amazing. I don't know, I gave this shit a fucking 5. Like, wow, I was really into the message. There's maybe a couple parts of his flow that are clearly, like, he's not the flawlessest rapper, right? But it kind of, like, you know how Talib Kweli was off, but off in a really good way? I feel like King Crooked's off, but off in a really good way. Like, it's more his rugged authenticity, his mistakes make him better, as opposed to being like this perfect, flawless, perfectly produced rapper, which wouldn't have worked for like this punk feel. I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna stop. This song is dope.
I mean, for me, I have more mixed thoughts. I think part of the problem is that the beat doesn't successfully pull me in here. It's got this repetitive trappy beat that to me isn't very interesting, and it does, however, feel like it's supposed to fit the mood of this futuristic track almost, while examining current events of like present events and comparing them in like this futuristic environment. So I do like that aspect of it, but it feels almost, and then this is something that I feel throughout this album, on and off, I feel like the beats, or the productions, they don't meet my expectations in numerous cases. And for me, that's the hardest part of this album, because I think that there's a lot of good lyricism here, but it ends up being kind of tricky because it feels like these beats were designed specifically for the purpose of being cartoonish, but then they don't always kind of feel like good music.
Okay.
I will say, though, that there's some great lines here. I really liked "Cop end a black man's life, go home and have dinner with his wife. I wonder how a monster like that can look his kids in the eyes." It's like, that is some really intense, really intense words.
To his credit, most of the verses on this album are densely packed in that way, where every line kind of brings almost that level of power, I find.
I didn't always find that,
at least on this track.
On this track, yes. This track was very, very well written, and if it wasn't for the production, which I wasn't such a fan of, I'd give it a higher mark. But I gave this a 3.8.
Perfect. Well, you give a mark already?
I gave this song a 4.5 on 5. I really liked the energy on it. I really liked the message from it. I liked where he touched upon when he said, "I can't talk about unity." And that is something that really stood out to me. Not the fact that he said it twice, but the saying it twice, first of all, emphasized the message on it. That was one.
Agreed.
2, the fact that, and a lot through hip-hop, I get this sense of unity within the black folk, the black community. And that's what a lot of, like, they're trying to get at, right? And equality. And he's sitting there, like, on the other side going, like, I can't even talk about this because I don't even feel like this. I don't even feel like we're trying. I felt like he was trying to say, like, he doesn't feel united with his black folk. He feels like they're starting to go to a different side. There's some of them who are going to a different side, and there's some of them who are, like, kind of just confused on the side they're on now or stuff. I really, that line specifically stood out with me. Other than that,
Good observation, Christopher.
Thank you. Other than that, the beat was produced well. I do agree with Ryan. The comic book feel to some of the beats do affect my feel to the songs, because it kind of overtakes, I feel like, the message that he's trying to get.
Album's flawless. I'm saying this track is flawless.
Right. Well, I just wanted to add on to that. But other than that, 4.5 on 5.
All right, cool. Red Hood's plot. Ha 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 ha.
Why you son of a bitches? Ha 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 ha. They laugh until we fight back.
This one's pretty cool. Now that we know that the MAGA continues, right? We move into this track where it's almost like, on the one hand, you have this chorus that's presenting the villain's point of view, right? Like, he's going to poison the water, Flint, Michigan. You know, the poison the air, all the chemtrail shit that goes on. All of the nuclear testing, all just the different shit that actually, literally, the pollution, the pushing away from environment. So there's plenty of etc. The kind of like, hey, let's just bet on see how they're going to die first. Will it be this? Will it be that? Ha 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 ha. And his laugh sucks, but I like it because it makes me laugh when I hear his laugh. It's corny but amazing. Okay.
Yeah, agreed.
Then it just fucking flips, right? And he's like, I don't know. He just fucking like goes in, and now I believe we're taking on King Crooked's perspective, fucking lashing back at this evil oppressor type. And I might be wrong, but that's how I at least took that. And there was a couple of things that really like caught my eye. His flow's fucking ridiculous. He has slow parts. He gets kind of quick with it. And I feel like he was a little bit more impressive on this verse from a technical perspective, even if the message on the other song was still fucking strong. But this one is more of an aggressive, like, fucking lash back. And, like, I don't know. There's lines like maybe through the actions of war, they could learn to love peace, which is kind of like, a lot of people feel the need for violence right now and to actually fight in these streets because the peaceful shit didn't work. And this is kind of maybe where his head's at and what he's trying to rep. Like, we need to get to this point. And then shit like gunshots ran on them coppers. My chopper made it pour. Time to send those devils to Hades' door. Say no more. And you get the sense that he's almost like this call to arms against this authoritative police state that's almost being imposed on them. And I get where he's coming from in a lot of sense. I might not fully agree or understand the rage that's inspiring this song due to, being white and Canadian. But, like, I can get where he's coming from enough to see how he's painting this almost comic situation that really justifies some of the more extreme lyrics you would hear in a gangster rap song. Like, he's managed to take this extreme violence and frame it in a way where, because it's such a comic situation, this whole thing isn't real. You know that everything he's about to say the whole way through this album is just almost elaborate, like exaggerated story. So this is him expressing a desire of like, you know, fighting back, but at the same time through the lens of Kapow's and Batman stuff appearing on the screen because of how he's framed it. And I find that to be super fucking impressive, how he can take gangster rap styled and make it so fucking intelligent like that and make it almost fit so like really nice. So ultimately I'm impressed with this short little ditty, and I give it a 4.5 on 5 because that ha 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 sucks. Go for it.
It was really cool that you got the way he backlashed out in the verse compared to the chorus. At first I thought that, and then I started thinking, what if the chorus is the chorus? The way it sounds, it set up this like villainy type. But the verse is just Crooked doing his verse, okay? But the verse is actually still the villain explaining his entire plot. If we think about villains in cartoons and movies, whenever they capture the hero or whatever, they always divulge their entire plan. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking maybe Crooked, and this is how I understood it, and I might be wrong given from what you got from it and how like the different verses.
To be fair, I also felt that, which is why I said I might be wrong when I described it. I'm not certain.
I understand that there is lyrics talking about like choppers and cops and stuff like that, but it wouldn't faze me that a psychopathic villain wants to cause a war so that in his mind he can kind of wipe everything out and build from new.
Honestly, I'm going to say it. It's just as credible as what I said because the way he framed the song, it's not definitive. And I had that same train of thought. I had to like think about it. And I decided on this option. But that version was still on the table for me. Now Ryan can chime in and like settle the debate on his impression. Make it like a democratic situation.
But I did give this, Ryan. I did give this a 4.5 on 5. The beat to me was just a little wonky. I was just like... okay, like it just like that this cartoony feel now for me is just like I didn't get enough villainy cartoon. I just got generic cartoon.
No, I gotta throw it back. This is more like elaborate early villains when it was kind of like that, not like actually villainous, but like comic book villain, like silly villainous.
I actually feel that the beat here works better. I mean, so first of all, just to reiterate, my problem isn't necessarily that I have an issue with the cartoony feel of songs. It's more of an issue of it feels like sometimes songs are cartoony without also being pleasant to my ears.
Agreed.
That is the issue that I have with the production on this album. This song is not an instance of that. I thought that this song was very interesting and for me helps paint the picture he's going for of this supervillain. I thought that the concept here was really cool. Love how he opens it with that like maniacal laughter. And I think that the beat does a good job. It's kind of like a slow boom bop style beat. It's got a nefarious feel to it. There's this organ amplification that happens during the verse, this organ being like a super nefarious instrument. I loved how that came together, even though I don't think the song is super amazing, but I like it. I like this one. He has these references, you know, like the villain is just, he's like he's got a cool feel to him. He feels like a different character, you know. The Red Hood, which is probably a reference to the Republican Party and or Trump.
Hey, the red hat. Oh,
right.
Man.
Because the MAGA Continues was the last one. Make
Yeah.
America great again.
So he's, you know, he's not being super subtle, but it serves its purpose, and it's kind of a fun little play between the real world and this fictional world he's creating. I love the idea of taking this comic book feel to it and applying it to real life situations. And I think it's cool. It's coolest when he is finding ways to reference real life situations while still maintaining the cartoon feel. And I don't feel he always does that throughout this album, but
Agreed.
He does it here pretty well, especially when with the reference to, like, you know, Flint, Michigan, when it's when he's talking, you know, I put lead in your water because I don't care. I put poison in your air because I don't live there. This idea of like these wealthy politicians who don't give a shit, and then, you know, step in Trump, who's supposed to be the different one. They've killed the puppet master, aka, you know, Obama, or the old politicians. And it's like, well, we, defeat this one system, and now the new evil has taken over already. And I think it's kind of a playful way to approach this subject in a comic book form. I liked it. I gave it a 4.1.
I just want to kind of give a little thing here. I like how the dark figure isn't just Trump or the presidential figure.
Yeah.
I like how it also kind of represents us. And I say us because in regards to what he says about shooting back at cops, last time I checked, shooting back at a cop is pretty evil, but we're doing it out of good because we're protecting ourselves. Not me. I'm saying like society. I'm saying like
I don't think.
Like,
I think it's kind of more about the system, maybe not so much the people.
I
mean, and shooting back at cops under this context is a very widespread rebellious idea. I don't know.
Again, I didn't want to direct it directly connected to that word, to that phrase. I'm just saying like the concept of good versus evil, but sometimes when you're fighting for good, you do evil things, and like sometimes when you're an evil person, you think what you're fighting for is good. It's just like that confusion. I just throughout the album.
I think he's making it very clear what's good and what's evil, and there's no confusion in his mind. I don't know. To me, the evil here is very much Trump's, not just Trump, but the institution he represents, the political system that's coming up, the upper echelons of society. Because there's other lines that make it very clear on this album that the poor people are grouped in with him.
Right.
And this is definitely an attack on elitists, perhaps, in the very upper echelons. But yeah, I don't agree with how you grouped us into that.
I think there's also an intention here, just because of how often the hip-hop movement tries to focus on this idea of Illuminati, this kind of evil ring of elites behind the scenes pulling the strings, right? I think the really important message in this track that's subcommunicated is just because the old thing was bad and it's gone doesn't mean the new thing is good, which is an important thing to state.
All right, let's talk about how he give you that hammer.
Down in the streets, welcome to the Banana Republic. Everybody's bananas, bandanas, and thugs.
So, from the plot point of view, he's part of this COD, whatever the fuck that stands for. I don't know, maybe
it is his label. He owns like I don't know what it stands for, but it's a label that he owns, and a lot of
he co-owns.
He co-owns, right?
Yeah, he's CEO.
Yeah.
Okay, so
the COD,
anyway, these guys are outlawed and banned, and they've like taken over Section 7, which is something, I guess, significant to something. I don't know. I'm not really into the conspiracy theory world, so
I don't know if Sector 7 is a thing, but it could also just be like in a comic book world. Sector 7.
Yeah,
is
it
just
made
a
me think of like the place in Final Fantasy 7,
I was about to say
Midgar or whatever.
Yeah.
And anyway, so they're there, and it's got a very much like from the hood feel. Like, don't come around these parts unless you down to ride. Don't be fake. Don't do this, etc., etc. And it's the whole song is like, if you come here, I'm gonna give you that hammer. And it's like, don't come around here unless you're really with us. That's the song in a nutshell. And it kind of fits that he's down to ride, and he has some interesting lines, right? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Tell me what the fuck are you doing? Don't come around here talking that gang, gang, gang if you ain't fucking with the movement. Kind of like clearly identifying as a little bit of this like attacking on hip hop people and people who are trying to stay woke and be down with these causes, etc., but aren't really down with it. Kind of looking at how being a gangbanger isn't necessarily the same thing as being part of a movement per se, right? And I like how like he's trying to like come at it really hard with on the chorus, I think it is, where he's like, even if it's live TV, I'ma smile for the camera, I'ma give you that hammer. And it's like, you can just picture him like in his zone and whatnot, like the cops coming, he's like, you know what, yeah, what's up? And he's just gonna blast it because he's on camera and whatnot. From like a fun rap side of it, like where he gets tricky and interesting with it, because he's kind of got this ability to have a bit of that poppy kind of hook feel to it, but then also coming with lines like, welcome to the Banana Republic, everybody's bananas, bandanas, and thug shit. Can you imagine a city the size of Atlanta mixed with Santa Ana, abandoned and famished because this is the land of the fuck shit? And it's pretty like, he can clearly fucking rap and do the rhymey stuff, but he's able to have a high level of versatility, which I really like about him. I think the beat was intense. My first reaction was, this beat's kind of blah, blah, blah. Then kind of like it didn't like it. And then the second time I heard it, I was like, wait a second, this is growing on me. And I find it's one of those ones where it fits so well with the energy of the track that it really grew on me and my mark. Ended up being a 4.75. Like, it's not my favorite song. There's a couple of things that kind of like, I have to be in a mood for it. But shit, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty talented, and it fits the album really well. Like, I feel like I'm watching a movie at this point, and I love that about a good album. Like, this guy understands the art of the album and how to keep a congruent story going.
Nice.
As far as he can go. I mean, there's a point where I lose a little interest on this album, but it doesn't mean that he fails. It was just personal, you know?
Yeah,
Nice.
that's fair. I didn't like the production of this track. Just, you know, it's the trappy part of it. I have really mixed feelings on trap beats. Every once in a while I'll get into them, but for the most part I don't really like that style, and I just find it too like mechanical and rigid. And the organ's sort of cool. So it's like I feel like they are partially succeeding at making this comic book feel pretty consistently. And again, in the process, it feels like we sometimes just don't get music that is as tasteful to my ears.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the sound effects continue to be cool, like the talking robotic voice. I like that aspect of it. Like, play up the comic book stuff. For me, that's like when this album is at its best, is when it's really just walking on the tightrope between that reality and that fantasy. You know, as far as some of the stuff that he says, there's the outlaw rebel party Cobb has been identified as national terrorists. They've taken over Sector 7 and claimed as their stronghold. Any politician caught crossing the border has been warned. This is a no-fly zone for them. It's almost like they're talking about heroes as rebels from the hood who are fighting for their streets back. And it's kind of like this cool concept of, like, you know, these rebels fighting against the evil order controlling the world and taking advantage, trying to take control of their freedom. And I do like that theme. Unfortunately, the song just was underwhelming for me, so I gave this a 3.5.
I gave it a 4 on 5. It's a banger, I'll say that. In terms of what it is, the chorus is pretty catchy. The verses are good, but they kind of covered everything that's actually really depth within the track. For me, it was just, all right, don't come around your hood and fuck around because you'll give me that hammer. Got it. Cool. So 4 on 5.
All right, so then the revolution comes.
I'm on that wave. I'm on that wave.
I like the premise of this song because it's something I actually think about a lot. So when the revolution comes, from what side will you be on? You know, I'm on that wave, but not really. The song starts even more powerfully, right? So I don't know who Jai is, but apparently it's that girl in the song, and she just lists like a bunch of names of people who have been shot and killed by police, and it's kind of powerful, right? When you really start to list those people, and you know, that's probably just a handful of like a lot more names that could have filled. The whole album could have probably just been names, and that would have been real, you know?
Once you start putting names and, like, actual identities to these things, it gets real.
And the worst part for me was I only knew about 3 of those names. I had to Google most of those people to see who the fuck they were. On the one hand, I guess that's good. On the other hand, it's really fucked. You know, it's not a good thing.
Right.
And so I already got put into, like, an intense headspace, and then there's just... So he has a really smooth chorus. When the revolution comes. Anyway, so it's softer, whatever.
Well, he sounds a little bit broken. Like he's trying to ask somebody, like, what side are you going to take when this all fucking hits the fan?
Right. And then it's just the lyrics are powerful. His verses it's intense. It's dealing with a bunch of stuff. Like he reflects on his inspirations. He reflects on how fucked the reality is. He points out the corruption in the legal system, like how judges are kind of motivated to put people in prison. How he needs to get the fuck out of town with his family. Who's gonna kill a cop. The second verse kind of goes into like how fake the illusion of money is for their people. Like how white people give them a guest pass taken away and shit. I mean, it's just lyrics like. A cop told me for like you, nothing better than a jail. Then it made sense because his idea of heaven is my hell. And you're just like, whoo, man. Or
Yeah, that whole beginning part of that verse is very good.
And then Jai comes in with this kind of like spoken word second verse where it's a lot of alliteration, like rambunctious, reckless, rebels, reverse, and revenge, reminded revelations, recycle to reveal a tragic end, erase sympathy. And it goes on from there. And it's just like, whew, at the end of the day, this is a strong song. It made me feel provocative and well thought out. Like, and again, it's something you really consider. Like, I really feel like in the future there might be a time where you will need to pick sides in this conflict of sorts. And it's a good question to ask before that day comes, since you should know where you're going to stand, kind of thing.
Well, it also kind of forces you to open your eyes and open your mind to what sides. I mean, a lot of people kind of just live their life without knowing that there's sides, like even right now. So once you start to really see like what's happening, or if somebody's like, well, put yourself in this type of situation and you had to pick a side, what would you do? What would you base it on? Pros and cons.
Right.
And then you start learning that now, you start getting information now. So it's kind of also like, I feel like the song's trying to make people aware of, look, there is something coming and y'all should be aware about what's happening so you can make the decision properly for yourself.
I give it a 4.5 on 5, just to throw it in there. Anyway.
I gave it a 4 on 5. The beat didn't vibe with me as well. I like the message.
I really liked it.
I like the message. I like the fact that he sounds a little bit. I said broken a little earlier in the chorus, but I don't want to say broken. More like stressed. More like overwhelmed, and just kind of finding some sort of comfort. But in terms of like comfort from a stranger, I get that type of feel. But no, that beat just wasn't bad, just wasn't good.
Okay.
That was my issue as well, is that the beat kind of took me out of it and took away some of my enjoyment. I mean, the production has another trap beat. There's this ambient wavy synth melody that's sort of nice with occasional flourishes of piano to add a nice touch to it. I mean, this is one of my issues, is that like there's a number of these songs where it's like I kind of like the melody, but then I just do not like the beat. The beat just doesn't have that human feel that I like to hear from drums or percussion. And the result is that I felt a little out of this song, despite there being some very good lines in here. Man, like, you know, I think Holden mentions some of these somewhere, so I don't want to hit the same ones exactly, but like talking about, you know, a cop told me, for a black man like you, nothing better than a jail.
Yeah.
Right? Because his idea of his heaven is a hell. And fuck a politician, because the devil is the president as well. That's why these bars start marching through my dreams like Martin Luther King writing letters from his cell. Welcome to the belly of the beast. Welcome to the gutter where peanut butter jelly is a feast. Woo! That line, where peanut butter jelly is a feast. Like, he's got these moments that are really strong. And it's one thing that I like about him, especially coupled with his really distinct flow, kind of showy flow.
Right.
But there's just there's something about his style that I sometimes falls short for me personally. Like some of his songs, I'll hear individual lines and I'll think that those were crafted really carefully and well, but the whole song doesn't quite come together for me in a way that I connect with. And in this one, there's like a lot of strong moments, and yet the song for me just doesn't quite hit home. I did like the alliteration that Jay had and that cool spoken word verse. I don't know. For me, I gave this a 3.6, and I feel like there's a lot of good in it, and it just didn't connect with me for some reason.
That's fair. All right, let's talk about how the truth and why you mad, brah.
Like common sense, the hood is moving different than you envision. Consumerism's the new.
Yeah. So this one is kind of like a call out almost to other rappers and other folk, like, yo, why are you mad at my truth, bruh?
Well, not just other rappers. I think the way I took this is that people get mad when you speak the truth, whether you're speaking the truth about rappers, speaking the truth about like anything, company, business,
But he
life.
kind of goes on like Crooked Eye about how like rappers' motivations are whack and things are blah blah blah. He's got lines like, "The hood is moving different than you envision. Consumerism's the new religion. There's fewer Christians and fewer bishops reading the Jewish scriptures.
I like how he talks about
bitches with shoe addictions and who truly risking it all for a coupe if the roof is missing on a foolish mission."
But I like that because he's speaking about the hood. He's speaking about the
exactly
environment.
what I was just saying.
Right.
So we're agreeing.
Yes, I'm saying that my issue is with Royce.
Yeah, but we didn't get there yet.
That's what I'm saying. I was just bringing upon the fact that Crooked did well. I have a problem with Royce.
I didn't like Royce's verse much, to be honest, because I felt Look, I heard the guy before, but it sounds like his voice is raspy, like he just smoked a fat blunt or something.
He didn't want to be there.
Didn't sound like he cared about rapping on his verse. I
hate the fact that he's flossing.
Well, no, his flossing was pretty well. In fact, a lot of his rhymes were really clever, and a lot of his stuff was really good. But I feel like we've had this concept album that's almost driven this like certain feel the whole way through it. And even Crooked Eye with his whatever, it fit the theme of the album. But then Royce broke the fourth wall, and I didn't like that. He mentioned Eminem and shit. I didn't like that. He broke the fourth wall. It wasn't okay. We're in a comic book. And it wasn't a...
Yeah.
We're not talking about the kind of comic book where you break the fourth wall in the more direct way. But it's 100%. Like he didn't fit the motif of the album. He didn't feel right. It's not that his verse was bad. It was that it didn't fit this album or this project.
It felt like someone didn't give him the memo that this is a concept album and that you're supposed to be playing to the concept.
Yeah. But at the same time, it felt like Crooked Eye or whatever is like, maybe I should get Royce on the album.
That could have been.
I don't know. Like, I imagine it's a good name to have. And, I mean, I'm curious to go check out some of Royce's older projects and whatnot because I don't know that much about him. But hearing this verse does not make me want to actually go back in time. But I know guys like Aaron from this channel have told me it's worth it. But I don't know.
I really liked Royce on Bad Meets Evil, the album. I feel like this is not meeting the maximum capabilities that he has. For me, this is like, not only is it not on theme, but he's saying stuff that almost makes me think that he's self-conscious. He seems to think it's like an ego trap. He's like bringing up his references to like, Eminem said that I was the best rapper and then I called the kettle black, and it's like a cute little joke, but at the same time it's like, why are you bringing this up? Yeah. I don't understand why you're bringing this up. It doesn't fit the song.
Nah, flat out this trash verse. No, this track was it wasn't trash. I give it a 4. But the verse from Royce felt like trash the first time I heard it. Second time, I felt like there were some impressive parts. It's a decent verse, but something about his voice feels weird. It's different here. Like he tore his throat out or something.
I kind of thought the difference was okay. I thought his performance aspect was something that I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. But he definitely doesn't sound like anything that I've heard from him before.
Nah, 4. That's it. It's the worst song I've heard so far.
4 out of 5.
I also sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I don't like Royce's part. I don't like how I got this sense of Crooked is talking about like the environment, the projects, the hood, and then shit's changing, and then Royce is like, I'm a better rapper, so fuck all y'all, and if you guys don't think so and you don't want to acknowledge me, well, I'll be in another country being the best. And I was like,
okay.
Okay. Yeah.
That's literally all I really have to say. Other than that, it was a good song. Okay. It's bumping. 4 out of 5. Well,
the other issue that I have with this track is that it's more trappy beats and not the good kind that I like. I'm just getting tired of it at this point. It's
going to be a lot of it in your future, Ryan.
Yeah, I know. But that said, the melody here is nice. And that seems to kind of be the trend. I like the melodies, and I often don't like the beats. But in hip-hop, I find that the beat is so important. It kind of serves as like the measure for what the flow is going to be. for most good rappers. And so it has an impact for me. Anyway, I thought that Crooked had some moments in his verse that were great, despite the fact that Royce seemed to kind of fall flat. What is this? Yeah. Oh yeah, that was the other line I laughed at. Royce had some line where he was like, "Tell the truth, who the best in the industry? If it ain't Crooked, Kendrick, and Cole, bitch, then it's me."
What?
And my reaction to that immediately was like, no, that's not accurate.
I would just say Redman's still rapping.
Like first of all, Kendrick and Cole are very, very good. You have to have some balls to just like throw their names into your these guys are good, and then I'm on that level, and it's like
just to also mention, he doesn't name M in that list, but then he brings him up after.
No, he brings him up way before.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably trying to
maybe he does bring him up after.
He's probably trying to I can forgive that because he's already referenced the M thing, so we know how he feels. He doesn't have to say it twice, but it's just. Yeah, look, Crooked and Royce are both talented in a bunch of ways. Like, both of them have really good flows. But, I mean, Kendrick and Cole are, like, two artists who are going to be looked back very favorably by history, more so than most. And I just don't think...
I'd say Kendrick far more than Cole.
I mean, Kendrick has a lot more work so far to draw from.
I think they both got 4 albums. No?
Maybe you're right. I mean, I was just thinking of since studio... commercial success, because
no, really. Like Cole had the first one, then he had Cole World, then he had fucking Forest Hills, then he had the one that came out this year. Kendrick had only. Section 80, Good Kid, Mad City, Pimp a Butterfly. I mean, you could maybe call Untitled Unmastered an album, but
that's
it was.
Fair.
And then this one that just came out, Damn. So I would say that if you look at the stature, one is a guy who owns the Grammys, and one is a guy who isn't there.
Right.
Anyway, I wasn't a huge fan of Cole's last project in terms of classics. Like Forest Hills Drive though is a classic, but then the other two, he wasn't even on my radar until Forest Hills Drive.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anyway, so to me, it's just almost like the fact that he chose those rappers was like pandering.
Regardless, each of them have at least one, if not more, albums that we can consider extraordinary. Agreed. And I have never heard an extraordinary Crooked I or Royce da 5'9".
To be fair, this wasn't Crooked I who said this. It was Royce.
Yeah.
And Roy, because Crooked I's verse didn't have that arrogance.
Yeah, true.
A little bit more
which I respect about him. Yeah.
All right, you guys, what would you give it?
I gave it a 3.25. I really didn't like it.
All right, let's move on to Shoot Back to Dear Officer / Train Tracks.
Compassion for none. They don't look at you and see a man. They see some alien instead. That's why I'm at.
This song's a 2-parter. Shoot Back to Dear Officer, which is kind of referencing the track off the last album that had With Tech 9 on it. And it comes in and it starts with the lady describing how a cop was attacking her and stuff. I don't even think I know that story. I can remember the voice.
A cop is attacking. No, there's a sister fighting, and then.
But I remember the story. I remember that news story. And then it goes into kind of the current states of cops and stuff, and just the situation of how they're treated. Like, they don't see us as human beings; they see us as monsters. Was one of the lines. Now, for the rest of the review, the lyrics weren't online, so watch as we quote a lot less directly. I'm just throwing it out there.
Just want to say one thing with that monster
when you're not
line,
copying and pasting, it takes a lot longer.
When he said the monster line, I like how there's a 3-second beat drop and it goes quiet to give that emphasis of the word monster to make you think about it.
And then so like we get the sense that this is like the present time, and then after about a minute and a half or so, the announcer lady from the other track comes in and is like, meanwhile back in the 1930s, and that's when the song, like, I thought it was going good. And then it went somewhere way different than I was expecting, right? So we get this, like, chain gang music of, like, the 30s and whatnot, and you're hearing it, and you're like, oh, that's bad. And then it's the story of a guy, and he's running for the train to, like, jump on the train and shit, and his heart's pounding and stuff, and he's got to get out for his life, and he's scared, he doesn't know where to go, and he's thinking about whatever, etc. And then he's thinking back on this situation that happened earlier where he's sitting there inside, and I don't know if it was the Klan or one of the other groups, but they busted into his house, shanked his mom, killed his dad and lynched him, all sorts of shit. They told him he could have a running start, so he ran off and stuff, etc. But then he remembers the voice of whoever killed him, whatever. Then he spends his whole life, like, fucking polishing shoes and stuff. They're calling him names, and in the back of his mind, he's plotting revenge, and he's plotting revenge. He goes as far as becoming an educated person. He's describing later on in the song how hard it is in the 60s for him to, like, get a coffee, even though he's got degrees and shit. But then he hears a familiar voice, and it's the same voice of the person who fucked up his dad, and he just fucking grabs the gun of his dad and blasts him and gets his revenge and shit, and then he runs, and that's where we are with the train situation, and you're just like, what the fuck did I just listen to? And one of the more, for me at least, one of the better, this is not one I've heard before. I mean, I've heard the story outside of hip-hop, but the way this was put together as a track and stuff, I'm certain it's out there, but it was really good. Excellent storytelling, and amazing how, like, you have this modern-day racism mixed with what was going on in the 30s, mixed with what was going on in the 60s, to show you how the struggle has this large historical context leading into this desire to shoot back at the cops, and where it kind of comes from, and why a man might be driven to this kind of revenge. And it does a lot for me, as you could tell. And I wish I could quote more, because they weren't up when I checked it. Maybe they came up since then, but 5 on 5. I love the flow of everything in this song. I was really into the plot and everything.
The storytelling and the creativity behind this song was just insane. And I like, and again, I like how they took the modern day racism and brought it back through the history within a creative story. It was fucking beautiful. 5 on 5.
Yeah, I also really liked this track. This was the probably the first one that I loved. Just because, for one, the production is really great for both parts of this. You've got that first part, Shoot Back 2, where the drum beat has this very groovy flow. I love the keyboard and the ambient choral singing in the background. He kind of paints this picture with these moments that I appreciated, like when he's referring to how the Fox News Corp brainwashed them, kind of like taking elements of our real world and using them in this comic book setting, like in a way that's realistic. And this is one of the things that's kind of strange about this album, and I have different feelings throughout, where sometimes I feel it works really well, sometimes I don't. But there's moments where, like this, it's exaggerated, and yet it's so on point that I almost end up thinking, like, but is it an exaggeration?
It's not.
Is this a comic book?
I think that's the brilliance of this fucking album.
Right.
It's that he was able to frame these real life issues in the comic book. So this comes in the middle of this story. If this had been on another album where it didn't have all that framing, it would have been a very political, strong song that might have been a lot harder to digest. But because you're already kind of in the, it's kind of, is it not mode the whole way through, yeah. I feel like it's a way of translating the seriousness of this message into more of like a movie experience. Right. But then it just sticks with you. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, this track was great. I gave it a 4.5. And
all right. So next up is Adderall Addicts. Don't flag us, YouTube bots, for saying drugs.
That's illegal too. Things that people do. Gloves and a slug, we gon' see it through. Ride on.
So this one I don't have that many notes on, because the track was pretty straightforward. It was a bit of a commentary on that woke culture and brainwashed people, and it's just, the line that really struck with me was "Stay woke, Adderall addicts." Right? Yeah. Because you look at these people who are drugged out their fucking mind, going on about being woke and this and that and blah 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 blah, but really don't even realize that they're kind of buying into a system. Like, I don't want to throw shade, but have you heard Jaden Smith talk? And just the way he describes being woke and shit? And you just look at him and you're like, dude, you're just like a pawn in a game and shit. Like, you have no idea what you're saying. Anyway.
Well, sorry, just a quick interjection. There is also something, I don't know if it's intentional wordplay, but it probably is. The whole idea of woke, right? Being awoken. And Adderall is an amphetamine, so it will definitely keep you woken up.
Well, that's why a lot of people take Adderalls when they're studying and in college and doing things.
And then you get enlightened and whatnot. And again, it's addressing things like the truth and like attacks on poor people, you know, just the way the system's kind of laid out and whatnot. And after that last 6-minute intense song, it is a bit of a nicer, fluffier, kind of shoot it out a bit song. We are starting to see a bit of redundancy a little bit here in the theme of the album, right? So while the niche of this track's a bit different, I feel like he's said a couple of these things before at this point, but not in the same way. So I'm still okay with it now.
Yeah.
But it's the beginning of that feeling happened about here. Ultimately, I could vibe to this. It had a really good and like freaking smooth beat to it. I feel like he hit it really well. But on the other hand, I don't feel like it really is in the comic book world anymore. I feel like we have now this is just a straight up like we're in real life song. Like he just like dropped the comic theme. And then it even goes to the song before. You're like, wait, was the song before like saying bye to the comic theme and now we're just hearing the real? Anyway, go on.
Yeah, this is like a funny thing. I personally kind of feel like the album in general falls in and out of it throughout, even earlier on. But it becomes increasingly apparent in sections like this, and it makes you... It does give you that sense that he is no longer fully in that fantasy world. This song, despite that, I enjoyed. The beat is dope for one thing. And there's some pretty cool ideas in there. Also on the note of the beat, they had that fake choral sound, which works really well with the creepy kind of ambient bassy melody that they've got going on. It really sets a feel to it that's like this distorted, evil feeling that suits the theme of the whole album well and the track as well. One line that stood out to me was this reference to like a new slave ship being the new slave ship is a packed prison, which is very much the case. I mean,
Yes.
You know, it's not like a hugely kept secret that prisons are basically labor systems where you can get people to do slave labor for
flat out,
nothing.
it's in the American Constitution that slavery is legal if you're incarcerated.
Yeah, so there you go.
And then there's clear evidence to show that judges have stakes in private prisons, thus sending people to prison creates profit. And so essentially they slap heavy fines on things like, I don't know, having a gram on you, locking a dude up for 18 years of free labor. Anyway.
Right. And it's also been the case that that there have been some states where it has been revealed that the police were using tactics to specifically aim at black people. Like if they see someone driving, they will just target them if they see that they're black and try to search them, try to find something on them, and then they get incarcerated for something like marijuana, which is ridiculous. But that's the reason that there's a disproportionate rate of black people who are incarcerated for marijuana possession in the United States. So, you know, that like really that I thought that was like a really succinct way, that slave ship quote to kind of hit on that topic.
And that's a prevalent theme on the album, even if we haven't touched on it a lot.
Totally.
It has snuck its way into multiple tracks in very clever ways.
So I gave it a 4. I liked it.
I give it a 4 on 5 if I didn't say it yet. I don't know.
I give it a 4 on 5 because I like the vibe to it. I like the feel of it. I like the little joke about staying woke Adderall addicts. I like how he started off explaining that the Adderall was kind of like an experiment from the government trying to see what's going to happen. I kind of think that a lot of these drugs that get thrown into our societies, I feel like
even in a very tangible way, look at how Ritalin is overprescribed all the time to get kids hooked on drugs.
Oh, I was on Ritalin.
Like straight up, I know I've said this before. Right. But I wasn't. But if I would have been a 7-year-old today with how I behaved, I would play with my pencils and shit in class.
Dude, straight up. At 7, I was on Ritalin, and then I finally got off.
Maybe I wouldn't have turned into the person I am today if it had been drugged up. Anyway. So, yeah, it's a seriously cool track. Mm-hmm. Did you give a grade? Yeah, you did.
4 on 5.
All right. You have anything more to say?
No. Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, that's next.
Interactive function. Voice command pistols like, shoot this nigga before we ended the...
Not mistaken, this song is basically saying, like, on the one hand, the stories, they're out in space, they're like cowboy shit. But really what they're saying is, check this, we're able to bring back gangsta music in a way that's intelligent and interesting, like reminiscent of the old days. But the shit's still kind of outlawed and not, like, proper, you know? Like, his real brand of music, his speaking truth, is an illegal thing in and of itself. I love the fact that he has a flat earth reference, kind of making fun of flat earthers and shit. I like the fact that he flips up the beat and it's fucking amazing. And the second beat sounds like something, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I like how the end has him kind of talking to some girl that like segues into the next song. Like all of this seemed like really fucking well played as a track, but I feel like the illusion of the comic book is over. And he couldn't suck me back in, so it just felt like another decent track, right? So now I'm back in the real world.
Well, I got that he's like flossing here, kind of like I'm better, I'm king shit type.
I don't know if it was flossing, as it was flossing the fact that he was able to stay so gangsta with the music while still being so real with it in an era where you're not even allowed to really do that anymore, you know? That was how I took that in general, and... yeah, again, not much to quote here. I really feel like he's very consistent on this album. He has very consistently driven a very similar message through for these 9 songs.
Yeah.
His talent has been adequately equal. Like, I don't think it's been bad at all. I think consistently he's delivered an excellent performance. Unlike these two, I felt the beats a lot more than they did, and I felt the experience a lot more in terms of enjoyment. This shit's another 4.5 on 5 to me. I just don't have a lot more new shit to add. It's dope bars, and I didn't see lyrics, so it's hard to quote specifics because of the time constraints.
Yeah, I wasn't super into the beat for this one. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I just kind of felt meh. And, you know, for me, it kind of took me out of it again a little bit. I liked... It's a weird thing. I liked moments of this... especially just this aspect of, like, you know, like, gangsters in outer space. That, for me, was kind of entertaining. Like, there's this intergalactic hustling, still packing space guns with interactive functions, voice command pistols, like, shoot this. And before we ended the act of tussling, a bullet. Anyway, like, there's also a reference to, like, a breathalyzer, interlock device in outer space. You know, there's like these cool ideas here that I do think can paint interesting imagery. But for me, I'm not as in it anymore, for one. And for another thing, I'm starting to feel like this album as a whole, it hits on a lot of the same themes again and again, but it doesn't feel like it is progressing consistently towards this really clearly known final destination. It kind of feels like it's turning around in circles, and it's not bad, but it feels like a missed opportunity, and it feels like it falls short of really hitting that concept album experience that I think he was going for. I gave this a 3.6. It's fine, but it really didn't do it for me.
Nice. I gave it a 4. I like the heaviness to it. I like the flossing. I like the fact that there's gangsters in space. It's a cool track, but I didn't really have much else to add. It was just a fun track. At this point, I'm kind of confused with the comic book stance where we're at that. And I don't really know where we are right now in terms of message, in terms of what he's trying to get at. So, 4 on 5.
All right, and then he goes all fucking left wheel with thug poetry.
The life of an outlaw is a roller coaster. The Red Empire put me on wanted posters.
I'm going to say this song is sufficiently adequate in being a talented and interesting song in and of itself. And I don't want to take away from the quality of the music for what it is. But what the fuck is this track?
It's his ride or die girlfriend, and he's really appreciating the fact that she stands by him. And somehow...
But how does that fit into the album?
I don't know. I'm just telling him what the track's about.
I think it has to do with the end of it, right? Because he does kind of say at the end of Cowboy Bebop, oh, I'm super stressed. I need to relax. So now he's trying to have a nice night with his lady. He's cooked him dinner and shit and blah, blah, blah. And right as he's getting to the part where they're going to have some dessert, you hear like a brick go through the window and smash. And you hear people fucking rioting. And that would lead into the following track. So on the one hand... I guess it's trying to say that this protagonist hero, King Crooked, has taken on, can't even get a moment's peace, because look at that. He's trying to settle down for a minute, but the world just doesn't stop. So I suppose there's that message to it. But really, this is just literally a Ja Rule-styled thug love song in the middle of this fucking otherwise pretty politically charged album. And I don't get it.
Yeah, it feels out of place.
But it doesn't make it a bad song either. But because of, like, I couldn't get into it. Like, I didn't want to listen to it.
I also didn't.
It's like, it's not that if it was on a different album, it would be amazing. But it's like, I didn't care about him wanting to smash this girl and love her and stuff.
That's how I felt.
So, and Jay sounded lovely. He has a very good voice. His singing tied it all in. But why was there this arbitrary R&B style hook on this album? Anyway, 4 on 5 because it's a decent song. But, like, wow, was it weird? Like, why?
I don't have really great in-depth thought on this. I mean, if you've listened in the past, you'll know that I am not easily caught by the romantic rap songs. It can happen. This is not one of those cases. For me, this song is a distraction that pulls you away from what the core focus of this album is. I would be more forgiving if it wasn't for the fact that as a concept album, you really do want to focus in on that concept and pull it forward, and I just had trouble seeing the connections. So I gave this a 3.3.
3.5.
Nothing else? No other words?
I didn't like the beat.
See, if you're wondering, internet people, I'm trying to make them talk more. It's not because I talk.
Look, just to settle this, unless I'm going to reiterate everything you both said, I really don't have anything else to say about this song. Okay, it was a cute love song. Great. You did it the gangster way to explain to her how you love her and all this stuff like that.
Big Boy did it better.
But nothing made sense to me until the ending when we got the riot. And I was like, okay, so we got the riot. We're lighting up fires.
The riot's in the next song. You're already in the next song, bro.
But that's exactly what I'm saying. There is no point to this song. Like, unless the whole entire song is just his... Unless, really, honestly... He had a great time with his girl or a great time with his wife or his girlfriend, whatever his relationship status is right now. And then he was like, I'm going to ruin it and start a fucking riot. So let's just...
He didn't start the riot because... Okay, but fuck it. City Lights is the next song. Let's talk about the riot.
With a slug to the grill and hung him till he swung from the ceiling. That's why we at this government building.
City Lights is like the fires burning and the protesting. It's another track that's kind of exploring, you know, the riots, how like a lot of this is because community leaders get taken up by the governments, these strong people, innocents, and the people feel enraged, and so they feel like their voices haven't been heard, so they're smashing back and etc. etc. I do like how it starts with the hands up, don't shoot chant, etc. So it wasn't like he started the riot. He was trying to have a nice, pleasant evening with his wife. Yes. And literally the riot happens outside of his house.
I'm talking him as the creator of the album. He just put this random song there that was all about love, and then he's like, fuck it, let's start a riot to get into the next track.
Maybe the point of it was this is what it's like when you're trying to have like a normal night in, and he's trying to show that.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
And maybe that does add a certain degree of something to it, but it still felt fucking weird in his delivery on this thing.
Yeah, definitely.
But in this song, it feels better. I appreciate it more. I didn't find it to be the most noteworthy track, but it does really explain pretty effectively why people feel the need to protest and why it isn't just like a destruction of neighborhoods thing, why it's a little bit more. And he adds that qualifying factor, and he's drilled into the point that there is a systematic oppression against the people. They feel the need to fight back, and maybe there is a valid reason for this. And I think this song serves the motif of that core theme. I give this a 4.25. It's on the smoother, calmer end of his tracks. Given the subject matter, it's kind of a cool contrast, but it wasn't my favorite. And at this point, maybe I'm feeling a little thrown off by the last song, so it's hard to get right back into it.
That was the problem for me, too. It kind of throws the tail of the album off a little bit, just having that awkward transition. Just it felt a little sloppy. That being said, the beat here is definitely more to my liking. Even though it's trappy, there's some classic hip-hop feel to it that I can get into a little bit more. And I do think that there's depth to the stuff he's talking about, even though, you know, it is covering some of the same ground that he's already covered. So for me, I don't have like a ton to say aside from that. I gave it a 3.9.
You?
I gave it a 3.5 on 5. Repetitive in terms of the message. Beat was great. The sound was good. I liked the dark, gloomy, like fire burning through the city, but also kind of like trying to appreciate your city still as it's falling apart type vibe. But I don't know. I again, not to reiterate what you guys were saying, but after the transition, I'm just a little bit like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the album anymore. I don't know how I feel about this whole twisted vibe that I'm in now, given that we were supposed to be in a comic and now we're just here. I don't know. It's like I went in here into this concept thinking one thing, and now I'm still in the concept. I'm still in the album, but I'm here, and I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, I think that is the challenge. I mean, concept albums to me have always been the most interesting thing conceptually to approach, right? Mm-hmm. To be able to carry on a discussion about something for multiple tracks, it's a unique opportunity as a hip-hop artist to do something that stands out. The problem is that it requires really strong writing skills to bring it all together and really make sure that you're keeping it flowing smoothly, not just within a track, because it's one thing already within a track as you're writing, and you want each line to be good, right? And then you want each verse to have its own kind of focus or purpose narratively, but then you want all of those to tie in to the whole song narratively or thematically. But then to do that and to then add an extra level of an entire album is very hard. I think that kind of shows here. I think that this song, while it's good, the jumping back and forth, it just doesn't suit a concept album super well. And I think that's the issue. It just feels like it could have been, if he had taken some more time, maybe he could have come up with something more consistent.
Agreed.
Nice.
All right. Let's move on to Brainwashed Word.
Right? Philando Castile, he's reaching for a license. They weaponized.
Kind of like starts off with some dude justifying how like these people deserve to die, and he's like kind of mentioning some of these famous guys like Mike Brown stole some shit, and the next one was selling cigarettes, and oh well, if they're doing some illegals, right, they should have just died. Like it's kind of like, you know, really just satirizing the commentary of the defenders of the fact that these people deserve death, right? Mm-hmm. And then it just flips into the track a bit, and he kind of is calling out the foolish, misleading folk who kind of like ignore the truth a bit, you know, and he doesn't want to roll with these brainwashed folk. And I like how he references Mr. Chappelle's Race Draft, where I don't know if you remember that skit from the Chappelle Show.
I don't know if I've seen that one.
It's funny. I mean, it's racist, but it's funny. But Chappelle was like that. So one of the lines that really grabbed me, because the lyrics appeared again for this track. Some of that propaganda fluid, I've seen it all before. That's how I knew it. Dehumanize an entire population before extermination, and the whole nation claps when you do it. Clap, clap, clap.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, that's happened. I've seen that shit. You know, I'm seeing the world going on right now. You watch the news. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. Your country has it. Pick a country. It's like everyone's got their fucking version of this now. None of us are innocent no more. I mean, as a Canadian, it's like, yeah, our country's pretty fucked up right now in terms of this type of shit, too. You see so much of it, unfortunately, happening at home, even when you're supposed to be in the better. And it's not just an American problem. It's turning into a global problem. Another line that really struck with me was some of you street brainwashed to only point your gun at another black person. You're doing their dirty work. And I like that.
And the line right after that is Malcolm X died for your sins.
And then somebody else, I think, died.
Machiavelli.
Yeah, and so it's just kind of like a series of going, like, look, like, all these people set you up for, like, the alley-oop, and how you going to let them brainwash you into tomfoolery and other shenanigans. So I dug the theme of this track. I dug the overall feel of it. I think this is really a little bit, again, it doesn't fit the comic book feel. It's a real life call it out. So we're again out of the. It does fit the album, but we're not really in the fantasy world anymore. This is like he's calling you up because. So on the one hand, I love the fact that the messages are so real. It's just I was digging the comic book, and I feel like he lost me on that part. But I gave it a 4.25. Dug the track, but. Yeah. I'm feeling a little upset with the album at this point, just for that reason.
I gave it a 4.3. I quite... This one kind of surprised me a little bit, in the sense that it was an interesting concept that was explored pretty well, and it had a really dope beat to it. Like this dope, like weird kind of like electro funky beat. And yeah, because it got this drum hitting. Oh man, my notes on this are no good. But the drum has got this like weird sound to it. This like bassy, electric-y. I don't know how to describe it, but that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you can make music that is hard to describe, it's like the first time you've heard something like that. That's a strong sign that you've done something unique and interesting. And I felt like some of these lyrics did really hit hard. Holden pointed out some of the ones that I had also taken note of. The track ends with, "Gotta show your teeth, tuck your shirt by the gooch buckle, no huts hang, boy got a moose knuckle, emasculate our identity, that's the new struggle, till we harmless is a cute chuckle." And I thought the flow there was really interesting. I also, I kind of, it's this weird thing where like I laughed at cute chuckle because it was like a funny thing to rhyme, but at the same time, he's not wrong. There's definitely this attempt to ignore the issues going on.
Not just ignore it, but what I took from that, it's like almost like they're painting you out to be a clown with your flashy fashion and your this. It's like, hey, look, you went from being like this hardened street thug looking, like even look at the hoodie and now how ridiculous people look, and you look at how much of all of these different things. So you let them masquerade you, and you look at a guy like Lil Wayne and the interviews he's given in the last couple of years, and then you can really look at this song with a whole understanding that there are some seriously prominent figures who do serious damage. Like, I think it was Young Thug who's like, I don't really care. I'm rich. Fuck do I care, you know? And it kind of like, oh.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And to kind of add to Holden's point, like some of the lyrics that kind of represented that, Machiavelli died for your sins, gold jewels on your entire limbs, chrome shoes on your Benz tire rims, ridiculed by your friends, viewing life through the empire's lens. This idea of like viewing success as being something that's based on money and status symbols, and nothing of real substance, just all flash. I think it's said quite well.
An interesting thing that popped into my head, and whether or not you find it racist, is Sarah Silverman once successfully compared young black men to old Jewish men, the rich, materialistic types. And I'm going to link it below because I think it does a better job than me misquoting it. But it's an interesting observation just at the eyes of the empire. Many people view old Jewish white guys as the empire. And how she was able to successfully compare the behavior habits of what they're into, their interests, like Lincoln Town Cars, like big Rolexes, like so many of these things where it's really just these two demographics that seem to be really interested in it. She does it way better than me, but what you said sparked that idea in me still. Chris, you have thoughts?
I like the idea of brainwashed. I like the idea that Crooked is calling out people in terms of just following and not leading and not really knowing what they're following. They're just kindly, blindly doing what they got to do. But at this point, I'm just a little bit, I'm not really excited anymore. The production was great. It was more of an upbeat track. It was more of a banger for me in terms of the music I listen to and I like. I did give it a 4 on 5. I do like the concept, but it's just my overall feel with all this right now. I'm just like, okay, this is something you quoted back when we were in comic book land.
I don't know about...
I don't know. For me, again, this is like my own opinion.
I feel like the subject matter's new, but he's no longer in comic book land was my bigger... I give it a 4.25.
He had kind of touched upon it before, but he'd only... I don't think he had delved into it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is fine by me. I've noticed most classic albums do that. They'll say a lot of the same subjects on a lot of songs, but each song is its own deep dive with some connecting ideas. It doesn't bother me. What bothered me was the loss of the cool fucking luster of the shiny comic. Anyway.
Yeah.
What'd you give it?
I'd given it a 4.3.
Okay, let's talk about Stand.
Flagged by the NSA, not to mention racial tension is thicker than mixing Tokyo fixing with...
So we got special guest on this one, Styles P, which is a name I have not heard in a long time, and Emanny. So this one, what I liked about it is it had a very, if you stand for something, rep that shit, and it will transcend forever. It will go beyond it. You can create stuff like that, right? So it's a lot about representing something, and it has a very hopeful and positive message for change, acknowledging that we're not quite there, but we can be. And it's like this general desire to keep it real in terms of your message, your core, who you are message. But it was kind of a softer, smoother song. Again, maybe it fits this album in the sense where, like, yeah, at the end, be true and stuff. But this, I don't know. I would have clipped this off the album. I wouldn't have put this one on at all. It's not that it's bad. In fact, like, it's got one of the nicest, most positive messages. But, like, I could even understand how the last track, with the name I can't really say, fits the album in terms of theme and stuff. This is just, like, a full 180 into, like, let's light the candle now and be super hopeful. But, like, I feel like we're missing some steps. Like we've gone, like, a really sudden shift from, like, the world is burning and everyone's fucked up to let's rep ourselves and be real. Like, it's almost like he didn't have enough to finish the story, but he's already wrapping it up. And that translates right into the next track as well. And I feel like, is this the conclusion? Is this like the like, I don't know.
So my interjection to that would be, on the note of concept albums, this is like, not even talking about a musician, I'm talking about, like, a writer, right? Like, if you look at someone who writes a novel and then they go and they write a book, they go from writing a book to writing, like, a TV show script. Totally different type of media, totally different type of plot development required. And as writers, when you practice in a specific medium, if that's short story or if that's long story or if that's movie scripts or TV scripts, you get a sense for what the plot beats should be for that format, whether it's, like, you know, each episode in a season slowly progressing towards the end or each chapter slowly progressing towards the end. But there's kind of a general flow and rhythm you get into as a writer. It feels here like Crooked does not have that nailed down for the concept album format, which is fair because...
But, I mean, just to counter that, Good vs. Evil 1 hit it a lot better than this.
But Good vs. Evil was, like, not him.
No, I mean, Crooked Eye is Good vs. Evil 1. Like, the first part of this album.
Oh, okay, sorry, yeah.
That's what I meant. Like, that first album, it was a lot tighter in terms of the concept than this. Because it led up to the death of the puppet master. It made sense. I feel like it gave up halfway through.
I think maybe he rushed through this one. Because I think that other one had taken him some years to put together, whereas this one he put together in, like, a year and a half or so. Because that last one came out, what, 2015?
Yeah. 2016.
That's what he says, but I think it was 15. But maybe it's 16.
And then this one is this year.
So, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, it's... so I feel where you're coming from.
So, yeah, for me, it's a 4. It's not the worst song by any means, but, yeah. And what'd you give it?
So I don't like the beat is the other issue that I have with this. I find that the drums are too mechanical. They're inhumane. They don't have that soul, that fallibility.
Chris would like you to know that it's actually 2016 because he checked on Spotify.
It's 2016. So it's a year later.
Yeah. Or a year and a bit.
Okay.
Because this came out in December. So
he wrote this album very quickly. Because it's Trump themed, right? So it's not like he could have been planning it in advance. A lot of it is, like, very new, relevant now material, and that could have contributed to some of the trouble, possibly. Anyway, there's some cool things about the lyrics in the song. You know, like, he has this reference to, like, women being harassed and hand up her skirt. I don't know if like the Me Too thing was going on when he wrote this, or if that was just a side effect of Trump being the president.
Well, he does say grab her by the...
Yeah.
Right.
So that could be, like, a little bit reference to that. Honestly, only because I have a quick interjection with this song. It's cool. It's cute. It's nice. I like the positivity behind it. Finally, there's some actual positiveness in it. I gave it a 4 on 5 because it was completely different than the rest of the album for me. Like I said, positive, stand up for what you believe in, don't try to change, believe what you, and all that. Just like that self-empoweringness really got to me, and I was like, okay, I like this. But again, I don't know how I feel with it on the album. I don't know how I feel with it at the place it is. I don't know how I feel with it with the vibe, because I'm still kind of hating on the fact that we're not in the comic book. And y'all can hate me for it, but
no one's hating you for it.
When you put a concept album, I expect the concept to be there.
Especially if it's the sequel, yo.
Yeah.
I went back and listened to the first one to continue the movie.
It's okay. We get it.
Yeah, so, and I mean, anyway, that's kind of my beef with this track. I think the message here is pretty good at points. For me, it's more of a problem of the it's not even that I don't like the beat. I don't even like the melody in this. It's like high-pitched and squealy, and it just didn't sound good to me. So I gave this a 3.5, even though it could have gotten more, I think, if it had a better beat.
I like the beat. I didn't find it as squealy.
I found it kind of drowned out the vocals a bit. All right, one more. Our favorite Jedi,
Mace
Samuel L.
Windu.
Jackson. I mean, Mace Windu.
Mace Windu.
We giving each other them tips with no gratuity. We killing each other with more impunity than immunity.
We looked it up even further, and Good vs. Evil 1 actually came out in November of 2016, meaning it's almost like just a year for this whole album. And he had a whole other project earlier, 2016. King Crooked is busy. This song kind of starts with one of the most fucked up things I've heard. It's this quote of a guy, a record executive, describing almost like in a whistleblower type way how he was in this meeting and hearing how the record executive was like, here's what's going to happen, y'all. You're going to push violence through music, primarily rap, because this is great. It's going to get guys to go to prison. Y'all will be able to invest in the stocks of the prison system, and you're all going to make a lot of money by making this music that puts black people locked up. And that's how it just starts. And then it's like, and everyone in the room was just silent. And then the song just kind of like fucking starts. And that if that's true, and I'd never actually heard it quite put like that, which is probably true, that's fucked right up. That's all I can say about that, right? And then I believe the first lines is
isn't it an excerpt from a movie?
Is it? If it is,
yeah. The whole conversation at the beginning is an excerpt from a movie called The Great Rap Discussion, The Great Rap Debate, and it's a part where they basically explain that this is where rap became more about the industry and stopped becoming more about the music. It was when they started noticing, I think it was around 1996, that they was quoted. If you guys know, please correct me if I'm wrong. But it was when they full on just kind of went, look, people suddenly want to see cars, bitches, money,
but it was specifically the idea of promoting crime in order to get people locked up, to get the prison shit, right? Not the flashy stuff. It's the criminal shit that they're pushing.
But also, like, if you watch a lot of these videos, you're driving a Bentley down the hood where somebody's getting shot.
Well, no, but the idea where you have to sell drugs to get that. Because, look, you could have written a bunch of songs where you invest in land and flip houses and get a Bentley clean, and they didn't want to promote that image.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Anyway, and then it, like, starts off with lines like, your RoboCop can't even read my rights. Look into his eyes. I see the spite. Real Evilite. Guess because I'm black, he don't gotta be polite. And then other lines like, we killing each other with more impunity than immunity, even in the so-called woke community, which I liked. It's like you got all these woke guys who aren't even playing right because they're woke with Adderall, you know? And what really got me, because, like, it's kind of like, look, I hate the name of this song because I don't see King Crooked as the Mace Windu of their culture per se, but yeah, I get it. He's like the leader type. He's the Jedi, blah, 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 blah. I get it. But what really it got me was the outro part where he just kind of drops the pretense of the album and he speaks to us like man to man. And he's like, look, I came to this, it's like a diary entry, right? Like entry 122. Yeah. And he's like, look, the reality is the people around me were saying bad things to me. And he says some crazy shit like nobody wanted to have business with me. Everyone's trying to get me to do all these corrupt things. And the line that really struck with me from the most was, and even chicks are like, choke me and point your gun at me while you fuck me. Like, even the girls that sleep with him have to turn him into this gangster, dark fucking type. And everyone's trying to make him be this certain thing. And nobody was like, let's start a business. And nobody's like, let's do some smart, productive shit. And it's just like, whoa.
It's intense.
You don't really think about it. Like, that one little part at the end may have been more powerful than the rest of the album.
The whole ending, I just want to read the last few lines because I find it's quite strong. Even police, like they wanted me to be a criminal before they knew, before I knew what crime was. They wanted me to be a criminal, treated me like one before I was even of the age to try anything sideways. So there was never a lot of people in my life who said, hey, let's start a business, let's do something creative. People who tried to bring out the leadership in me or anything positive.
It's true, man.
It's a really poignant, strong note to end on. Yeah, it hits home.
So this one's a 4.5 for like the quality of song. I really hate the title, but I love the power of message.
Yeah, I agree. I'd also give it a 4.4.
I gave the song a 4 on 5. I think it was pretty talented. I think that it was the flow was nice. The flow it was properly made, but the only thing I didn't like is I don't know why he called it Mace Windu.
Well, because of who Mace Windu was. He's the Black Jedi.
Yeah, so I guess it kind of fits the concept theme of superhero.
But
no, that part made sense what he was going for. I just felt it was cocky in a bad way.
Fair enough.
I don't know. Anything else on this track?
Not about the track. But I do have something I want to bring up.
Okay.
I've been staring at this album cover for the last 5 minutes, okay?
Okay.
And
that's not quite true, but okay.
I've noticed something. One,
it's more like a minute.
The person kneeling down on it, I don't know if that person's black or not. And the reason why I'm saying this is because on the last album, it's clearly Crooked I as a character with a pharaoh hat and a gun ready to go at it. This time around, I'm looking at the hair and
it's Trump.
It's Trump kneeling.
Yeah. It's Trump.
So now that's why my entire world is shattered, because now Trump is kneeling, and he's wearing the red hood, and now there's a black figure with red eyes. So I'm trying to figure like the entire time I thought just this was a generic character for the hero. It's not. It's Trump entering into the Red Empire.
So I would have assumed he's approaching the Puppet Master, but if the Puppet Master is
the Puppet Master's up here. Puppet Master's at the top. He's above the black dude. He's on the mountain. There's the chair, and he's right up there.
Right.
I think what it's trying to signify is those are all bad people that are there listed at that
including
table.
Jesus.
And yes, as we discussed before, why he would be included. And it's got Saddam or guys like that right there. Not Saddam, the other one.
Osama bin Laden,
so
Hitler.
It's saying here's Trump making his way to the great evils out there and enjoying his place at the Last Supper-like table. He's a disciple of these other guys. So yes, it's cleverer, and I'm happy we caught that before it ended. And I'm certain somebody in the comments gonna comment on that long before we get here, because we kind of fucked that part up earlier. Yes, we get it. Anyway, I give this album a 4.47. I know you guys didn't necessarily like it as much as I did. As much as he did lose the coolness of this album, if he had maintained a consistent concept to the end, this may have been ranking for Album of the Year for me. Because thematically it's dope. I fucking love it. But again, as soon as somewhere around Royce da 5'9", between Royce da 5'9"'s verse, Thug Party, and just the general...
Thug poetry,
and the general inability to stick with the theme, I found it really fucking hard to give it a higher mark. But 4.47 still ranking up there with greats. I could see this as an underground classic in its own rights, and I'd even come back to it because it was a fun listen for me. I enjoyed the experience of this album.
I felt that this album fell short of a much greater potential that it could have achieved, and that it definitely had the means to achieve. I gave it a 3.75, and I do think that there's moments here where we really see what Crooked I is capable of, or Crooked.
King Crooked, bro.
I know. I'm just
crossed out X on my eye.
But for me, it was too inconsistent conceptually. It was also too inconsistent beat-wise. I found that the beats just didn't have a consistent enough punch. I wasn't in love with it. For me, this is a hard album for me to listen through. I'd skip through half of the songs, and that's kind of an issue for me. So,
okay,
I gave it a 4 on 5. I think that the album's great. It's got a nice design to it. It's got a nice musical ear to it. It's got a nice tone to it. But I don't want to give it anything higher just because I don't like
I don't know what you
the
just
concept
said.
left.
Okay, so it was a 4.
That's a 4.
thank you all for watching. We appreciate you. If you just got here, there is a contest, grind to 1,000 subscribers. If you subscribe, like the video, and then leave a comment about our review or the album in general, you're eligible to win some Amazon money. If you go back to the beginning of the video, we put more details. Thank you all, really, for real. Even if you don't care about the contest, we love your comments. They mean the world. They really educate us and create a more fulfilling experience for everybody who's coming to the video. So feel free to contribute. Feel free to fucking call us out on the worst of the worst. Why we don't know shit all about this guy. Anything you want to say, it's totally legit.
The thing is that you are entered in the competition by doing so, by subscribing and liking and commenting.
And even if you like... So feel to unsubscribe after. At least you're in the contest until we break 1,000.
Yeah. You can also challenge us on our points if you disagree, and that will still enter you in the contest, you know? Speak your mind. What we really want is for people to talk about music, because the thing that's important to remember is that it's all perspective. None of these numbers that we say have any significance outside of our own personal taste. And
fuck, sometimes I don't agree with myself 2 weeks later.
Yeah, that happens to me too. Or like, you know, you listen to an album that's your favorite, and then a decade later you listen to it, and you're like, wow, I don't know how I ever liked this.
It's called being a teenager.
Yeah. Taste changes. So anyway, all I'm saying is that our reviews, the numbers that we give, don't matter that much. What matters is the conversation. And maybe you guys have something that we miss that you could share.
Yeah.
And we love that. We love being corrected and having new perspectives and being able to look at something in a new light, or vice versa. Do you think maybe we were too generous with the album? Maybe you didn't like it as much. Let us know.
All of that stuff. All right, and if you tweet Chris, and he'll make us read it out loud, and nobody's tweeted him in 3 weeks, so please, somebody tweet Chris, because
he cries
I'm
at
going to keep saying this, and,
he cries.
And I'm going to keep telling you how long it's been. His Twitter's in the description. Help the man out, bro. Show him some love. All right, bye, everyone.